The galaxy was on fire. One star system after another fell to the Zereth Dominion. Their fleets moved like a storm, swallowing planets in days, sometimes hours. Cities that had stood for centuries turned to ash in moments. No army had stopped them, no defense had slowed them. People whispered that the Zereth were not just conquerors, they were an ending. Refugee ships crowded the space lanes. Every day, desperate voices filled the emergency channels, begging for rescue, warning of what was coming. Whole governments were abandoning sectors without a fight. It was survival now, not victory. Far from the chaos, deep in the cold stretch of space near the Tyrian Gate, a single human warship drifted in silence. Its name was Horizon's Bane. Its hull was scarred and patched, its engines worn from battles long past. It was not part of the main fleet. It had no reinforcements. But when the distress calls came, the captain of this ship gave one simple order. We hold here. Inside the bridge, dim red lights glowed over the crew. The air felt heavy, like everyone knew what was coming, but didn't speak of it. The captain, Rylan Voss, stood in front of the central display, watching a red marker moving across the map. The Zereth fleet. They were still far, but closing fast. Time to arrival? Rylan asked, without turning. 72 hours, Captain, answered Commander Hale, his second in command. If they keep their current speed, they will, Rylan said. They want the gate. The Tyran Gate was the only hyperspace link to 5 human colonies in this region. If the Zerath took it, those worlds were trapped. Everyone in the galaxy knew what happened to trapped worlds. Back on Earth, politicians argued in safety. The human navy's main fleets were weeks away, too far to help. High Command had already sent a recall order to Horizon's Bane, telling them to retreat and regroup. The captain hadn't answered. He had no intention of moving. Some in the crew agreed. Others whispered that staying was suicide. But none of them left. Later, in the quiet of the crew quarters, Engineer Tessa Cade checked the reactor readings again. The ship's power core was stable, but weapon systems were another matter. The plasma cannons needed maintenance, the torpedo bays had only half their standard load, and the stealth shielding had been jury-rigged so many times. She didn't know if it would hold in a real fight. She knew the captain was aware. She also knew he wouldn't care. On the outer decks, gunners trained with their targeting systems, running drills over and over. The ship's AI, Argus, ran simulations every hour, predicting enemy attack patterns. Each time, the result was the same. Overwhelming zero victory. Argus never said it out loud, but the crew could see the numbers. On the third day, the first signs came. Long-range sensors caught small energy spike scouts. Zeroth ships were already probing the area. One passed dangerously close, scanning the gate from a distance before vanishing into hyperspace. They know we're here, Hale said. Good, Rylan replied. Let them come knowing. That night, though night had no meaning in deep space communications, picked up an open transmission. It was from a nearby human colony. Syrian Prime. The voice on the channel was panicked. This is Governor Lai of Syrian Prime's Earth forces inbound. Repeat inbound. Shields failing. Ground defense breached. The rest was static. Minutes. Later, another signal came. This one was a recorded Zerath broadcast, translated into human language. Your defenses are illusions. Your fleets are dust. We take what we want. Surrender and die quickly. Resist and die slowly. The bridge was silent after the message ended. Rylan didn't look at anyone. Status of the gate? Stable, Hale answered. No sign of tampering yet. Then we hold. 2 days later, the main Zereth fleet entered sensor range. It was massive dozens of warships, flanked by smaller strike craft. Their flagship alone dwarfed the Horizon's Bane. The scale of it made even the most experienced crew members feel a cold weight in their chests. They'll be here in 20 hours, Argus reported in its calm, neutral tone. The crew began. Final preparations. Power was diverted to the forward shields. The ship's gravity mines were armed and set for remote deployment. Medical teams secured the infirmary. No one said it out loud, but everyone understood that help wasn't coming in. The mess hall, a few of the younger crew members asked Commander Hale if they could still turn back. Hale looked at them, then at the deck. "Ask the captain," he said. When they did, Rylan only shook his head. "We hold," he repeated, like it was the simplest truth in the universe. Hours passed. The red markers on the tactical map grew larger, closer. Outside the bridge windows, the Tyran Gate floated like a ring of light, silent and beautiful against the darkness. It was the only way through. The captain stood there, watching the stars. Somewhere far ahead, the Zereth were coming, bringing the same destruction they had unleashed on countless worlds. But here, for the first time, they would find something different. They would find a ship that refused to move. The first warning klaxon sounded. Argus spoke. "Zereth Vanguard, entering local space. Estimated contact in 2 minutes." On the bridge. Everyone went to battle stations. Weapons powered up. Shields came online. The Horizon's Bane turned slowly to face the incoming fleet in the distance. A shadow appeared, then another, and another, until the darkness itself seemed to twist with movement. Alien ships emerged from hyperspace in tight formation, their hulls glowing with the faint, sickly light of Zereth energy cores. The comms channel crackled. A harsh alien voice filled the air. "Human vessel, stand down. Your world is next. Your gate is ours." Rylan didn't respond. Instead, he gave a single order. "Open fire." The void lit up. Plasma streaked through space, tearing into the first wave of Zeroth ships. The battle for the Tyran Gate had begun. The wreckage of the first wave drifted across the stars, glowing faintly in the light of the Tyran Gate. The Horizon's Bane had torn them apart faster than anyone thought possible. It wasn't luck. It wasn't even just skill. This was a ship that shouldn't exist. Years ago, before the Zereth War had reached human space, the Horizon's Bane had been part of a secret Project Black Veil. Officially, the program had been scrapped. The prototypes were said to be destroyed, the technology sealed away. Unofficially, one ship had vanished from the records. It was faster than standard warships. Its armor layered with experimental stealth composites, and its weapons. They were not supposed to be legal under any interstellar treaty. Captain Rylan. Voss knew every hidden system by heart. He'd been there when the ship was born. On the bridge, Commander Hale stared at the tactical display. "They'll think we're a fleet," he said quietly. "They already do," Rylan replied. "Let's not tell them otherwise." Argus, the ship's AI, spoke with its usual calm tone. "Long-range scans indicate the enemy is regrouping. More ships inbound, decimated 30 heavy cruisers, and an unknown number of escorts." In the gunnery decks, crews were reloading the plasma batteries. The scent of overheated metal and coolant filled the narrow corridors. Every system had been pushed to its limits in the first clash. Engineer Tessa Cade was cursing at a jammed torpedo feed. "This thing's gonna kill me before the Zeroth do," she muttered, hands deep in the machinery. In the quiet between battles, some crew members were whispering theories. They're not attacking yet because they're afraid. No, they're just planning something worse. Sensors pinged. The Vanguard was gone, but new contacts appeared, moving faster, spreading wider. They weren't charging in this time. They were testing, looking for weaknesses. Rylan studied the patterns. He could see it, how they curved around the gates. Perimeter, how they were trying to map every inch of his defense zone. "They're hunting for the soft spot," he said. "They won't find it." Hale's voice was grim. "Captain, you know they will bring their main fleet if this keeps." "Up! Good!" Rylan said, eyes never leaving the display. "Let's see how far they're willing to bleed for this gate." Hours later, a lone Zereth scout ship broke formation and moved toward the human warship. Its design was jagged and insect-like, with sharp wings bristling with weapons. It stopped. Just short of firing range, broadcasting a signal. Argus translated it. "Identify yourself. Your vessel is not registered in human fleet records." Rylan smirked. "Exactly," he said, and cut the transmission. The Horizon's Bane fired a single shot. The scout ship ceased to exist. That was when the second clash began. From the darkness, Zereth strike craft swarmed forward, dozens of small, agile ships, faster than anything in the human fleet. They darted between plasma bursts, trying to get close. The Bane's point defense turrets roared to life, tracing thin lines of light through the void. One by one, the attackers vanished in bursts of flame and debris. But then, something new appeared, an enormous silhouette on the far edge of the sensors. It was no cruiser. It was bigger, heavier. Argus spoke. Unidentified Zereth warship detected. Configuration matches no known records. Energy output suggests experimental weaponry. Ryland's eyes narrowed. The Dominion had brought something special. On the crew decks, the younger soldiers felt the vibration of the ship as the engines pushed harder. They didn't know what was coming next. They only knew the captain wasn't planning to back down. And somewhere, in the silence between sensor pings, the reality settled in. The horizon's bane had just revealed itself, and the Zereth were about to answer. The shadow grew larger with every passing second. It was the size of a city, its hull made of black alloy that swallowed the light. Jagged spires jutted out like the bones of some massive predator. This was the Zereth Spear of Dominion, a siege ship built to break planetary shields in hours. No human ship had ever faced one in open space and lived. On the bridge of the horizon's bane, the crew stared at the tactical display in silence. Range? Captain Ryland asked. 200,000 kilometers and closing fast, Commander Hale answered. They'll open fire the second they hit 150, Argus added. Ryland nodded once. Then we'll hit them first. The horizon's bane came alive. Its main drives roared, and the ship surged forward, not away, but straight toward the enemy. The crew gripped their stations as the forward cannons spun up, glowing with energy. They're expecting us to hold the gate, Hale said. They're wrong, Ryland replied. The first volley came from the human warship, a blistering stream of plasma that lit the void in blue fire. The shot slammed into the forward shields of the Spear of Dominion, making the colossal vessel shudder. Before the Zeroth could return fire, the Bane rolled hard to port, unleashing a full spread of torpedoes. Several detonated along the siege ship's flank, tearing chunks of armor free. The explosions rippled across the black hull, briefly revealing glowing skeletal structures beneath. The Zereth responded instantly. A beam of pure white energy lanced from the spear's forward emitter, cutting the space where the Bane had been. Seconds before, shockwave rolled the human ship sideways, alarms screaming through the decks. Shields holding at 68%, Argus reported. Ryland's eyes never left the tactical screen. Bring them to 40 if you have to. We're getting in close. The crew exchanged quick glances. Getting closer to a siege ship was suicide. But they obeyed. Small Zereth escorts broke away from the main fleet to intercept. Sleek blade-shaped ships darted in, firing streams of molten plasma. The Bane's point defense guns stitched through them, turning attackers into burning wreckage. But still, more came. In engineering, Tessa Cade yelled over the roar of the drives. You're pushing the reactors past safety limits. That's the idea. Hale's voice crackled over comms. The human warship dove under the siege ship's belly, weaving between the massive support pylons that connected its forward and aft sections. Here, the Zeroth shields were thinner. Designed to repel planetary fire, not something this close. Target the stabilizers, Ryland ordered. The Bane's plasma cannons tore into the exposed structures. Metal screamed, and one of the pylons erupted, sending shockwaves through the siege ship. Its massive frame listed slightly to one side, but the victory was brief. From the spear's ventral surface, a swarm of smaller drones spilled out, hundreds of them. Each carried explosive payloads meant to cripple anything smaller than a battleship. The sky filled with movement, red warning markers flooding the crews. Displays they're trying to overwhelm us, Hal warned. They think we can't hit all of them, Ryland said. Argus, prove them wrong. The AI took control of half the ship's weapons. What followed wasn't just firing, it was precision slaughter. Turrets rotated in perfect synchronicity, targeting drones in mathematical order. One by one, the attackers disintegrated into shards. Still, a few broke through. Explosions rocked the aft sections, lights flickered, the inertial dampener stuttered, for a second making stomachs lurch. Minor hull breach on deck 6, Tessa reported. Nothing I can't patch. Ryland grinned faintly. Then patch it. We're not done yet. The Spear of Dominion tried to swing away to bring its main gun to bear again, but Ryland's ship stayed glued to its underbelly, hammering weak points until hull armor plates tore free. Finally, the massive vessel began to retreat, slowly at first, then faster, as its escorts pulled back to shield it. On the bridge, the crew stared at the sight. Zaret's greatest weapon, pulling away from a single human warship. Hale exhaled in disbelief. We made them back off. Ryland's voice was steady. They'll be back. And next time, they won't be testing us. In the silence that followed, Argus spoke. Captain, enemy long-range transmissions detected. They're calling for reinforcements. Ryland looked at the Tyran gate through the forward viewport. It still glowed, untouched. He straightened his uniform, eyes hard. Good. Let them bring everyone they've got. The first wave had been brutal. The second had been worse. By the time the third wave hit, the crew of the Horizon's Bane were running on adrenaline, stale coffee, and sheer stubbornness. The stars beyond the Tyran gate were lit with the wreckage of ships and human, most Zir floating like metal corpses in the void. For 19 hours straight, the enemy had attacked in unbroken cycles. The Dominion wasn't trying to outmaneuver them anymore. They were trying to grind them down. On the bridge, red warning lights painted the walls. Smoke clung to the ceiling vents. The air smelled faintly of burnt circuits. Shields at 34%, Argus reported in its unshakable, calm voice. Keep them up, Captain, Ryland Voss ordered. They will fail within the next 6 minutes under current conditions. Then make those 6 minutes worth something. From his station, Commander Hale's eyes flicked over the tactical display. Dozens of Zirath ships were in range, heavy cruisers, frigates, and swarms of smaller interceptors, all firing, all pushing toward the gate. The Bane's guns roared back in answer. Plasma blasts lanced through the void, shredding interceptors before they could slip through the defensive perimeter. Torpedoes streaked outward, detonating with flashes bright enough to burn into the eyes. Down in engineering, Tessa Cade was shouting over the roar of coolant pumps, reactors flirting with overload again. I can't keep it stable if you keep pulling this much power. And don't let it blow, Hale's voice replied over the com. We don't have a backup ship. Somewhere in the mid-deck corridors, a Zirith boarding pod slammed into the hull. Alarms screamed as the pod's cutting torches bit into the armor. Security teams scrambled to intercept. The corridors echoed with the hiss of airlocks and the sharp crack of rifles. Alien soldiers spilled through, their black armor gleaming under flickering lights. They moved fast, wielding curved energy blades and wrist-mounted plasma bolts. The human defenders fought hard, ducking behind bulkheads, firing in controlled bursts. The fighting was close, brutal, and loud. By the time it was over, Deck 4 was littered with alien bodies, the walls scorched black from weapons fire. Back on the bridge, Argus updated. Boarding attempt repelled. Hull integrity reduced to 81% in affected sections. Ryland didn't even flinch. Noted target their carriers. Make it hurt. The Bane shifted position, cutting across the enemy's formation. Its broadside cannons unleashed a storm of fire, punching through the Zirath carrier lines.
Went by.
1. The massive troop ships erupted, scattering burning debris that tumbled end over end toward the endless black. But the Zirath kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Hale glanced at the captain. We can't keep this up. We're burning through ammo faster than Tessa can reload. Ryland's eyes stayed fixed on the tactical hala. We can. We will. Ours dragged by. Crew members rotated through stations like clockwork, each break only long enough to swallow a ration bar and a gulp of water. The hum of the engines was a constant presence. The ship's heart beat in the chaos. The enemy tried something new, splitting their forces to hit the Bane from 2 directions. The move forced the ship into a desperate dance, spinning between both lines of fire. At one point, a Zirith heavy cruiser got close enough to scrape the Bane's shields. Ryland didn't give the order to fall back. Instead, he ordered the deployment of the gravity mines. Invisible spheres drifted from the Bane's launch bays, each one a compact mass generator. When the first cruiser crossed their path, the mines activated, dragging ships violently into each other. The collision set off a chain reaction. Half a dozen enemy ships smashed together, their reactors flaring like dying suns. Even the Zereth hesitated at the sight. But hesitation only lasted so long. As the 19th hour passed, Argus spoke again. "Captain, long-range scans indicate another fleet entering the system. Estimated arrival 9 minutes. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. Another full wave." Ryland's voice cut through the tension. "Then we reload everything we've got. This gate doesn't fall while we're breathing." And so the Horizon's Bane turned again toward the darkness, its weapons glowing hot, its hull battered, its crew exhausted but still unbroken. The Zeroth weren't just fighting a ship anymore. They were fighting something far more dangerous, human warship that refused to die. The order came in the middle of the chaos. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't an update from Allied forces. It was a direct transmission from human high command, encoded and urgent. On the bridge, Commander Hale read it twice before speaking. His voice was tight. "They're ordering us to abandon the gate." For the first time in hours, Captain Ryland Voss looked away from the tactical display. "Say that again? They say we've done enough? Evacuate the crew? Leave the system before the next fleet arrives?" Hale paused. "They're calling it a strategic withdrawal." The bridge went silent except for the faint hum of the engines. Every crew member glanced toward the captain. Ryland didn't ask for opinions. He didn't argue. He didn't even acknowledge the message. He just walked to the comms console, tapped a single command, deleted the transmission. "We hold," he said. No one questioned him. The crew didn't need to be told what that meant, and they had all seen the gate glowing beyond the viewport. Its silver light the only escape route for the 5 human colonies in this sector. If the gate fell, millions would be trapped with the Zereth. Down in the mess hall, a few soldiers sat together in the quiet, helmets on the table, faces pale. They didn't talk about the order to retreat. They talked about home, about green fields on Arian Prime, about the smell of rain on Earth, about families they hadn't seen in years. Some of them wouldn't see those places again. They knew it, but no one said it out loud. In engineering, Tessa Cade ran her hand along the side of the reactor housing, feeling the faint vibration. The reactor had been pushed beyond safety limits for almost a full day. Every hum, every flicker of the lights made her tense, but she kept working. The ship wasn't going to stop for anything less than destruction. On the lower decks, security teams repaired bulkhead breaches with whatever they could find: steel plates, welded debris from destroyed enemy boarding pods. They joked quietly while working, because if they didn't laugh, the silence would be too heavy. The next Zereth push came without warning. Boarding pods slammed into the hull again, this time in 3 different sections at once. Sirens blared. The sound of metal tearing echoed through the corridors. "Boarders on decks 4, 5, and 8, a voice shouted over internal comms. The fighting was vicious. The Zereth didn't care about casualties. They pushed forward in waves, black, armor flashing under strobe lights, energy blades cutting through steel and flesh alike. Humans fought in tight formations, their rifles barking fire down narrow corridors. Ryland himself left the bridge for a moment, rifle in hand, to join the defense on deck 5. He moved like a man who had been doing this his whole life. Precise, unshakable. By the time the last Zereth soldier fell, the floor was slick with blood and smoke hung in the air. Back on the bridge, Hale reported the damage. "We've lost another torpedo bay. Hull integrity is down to 73%. Ryland simply replied, "We hold." The crew understood now this wasn't just about defending the gate. This was about making the Zeruth pay for every Zeruth meter they tried to take, and so the Bane fought on, through fire and exhaustion, through smoke-filled corridors and the pounding thud of enemy impacts. The Dominion had faced human fleets before, But they had never faced a single warship that fought like this wounded. It's outnumbered, and yet still advancing into the teeth of the enemy. Somewhere deep in the command ship of the Zereth fleet, the commander watched the endless streams of casualty. Reports and realized something unsettling. This wasn't a battle. It was a siege. The humans weren't the ones trapped. The stars outside the Tyran gate were calm for a brief moment, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Captain Ryland Voss stood on the bridge, staring at the tactical display. The Zeroth fleet had battered them for days, but the Bane still floated. Weapons primed, shields holding. The next move had to be decisive. "Argus," Ryland said, voice low but firm. "Prepare a withdrawal maneuver. Make it look real. Plot a course as if we're abandoning the gate." The AI complied instantly. Course plotted. Withdrawal appears. Natural, enemy sensors will detect trajectory. "Good," Ryland said. "Now we wait." From the enemy flagship, orders rippled down. Zereth saw the Bane pulling back. It was an opportunity they could not ignore. Strike craft swarmed forward. Heavy cruisers flanked the ship, and the fleet moved in tighter formations. Every weapon system pointed at the Bane. "Here they come," Hale said. "All in." The human crew held their breath as the trap activated. The gravity mines, hidden in the empty space around the gate, suddenly ignited. Massive gravitational distortions rolled across the battlefield. Enemy ships collided with each other, caught in the invisible pull. Explosions flared as hulls buckled and reactors overloaded. The front lines of the Zereth fleet shattered in seconds. "Damage report," Ryland barked. "Multiple enemy ships." "Destroyed," Argus replied. "Approximately 30% of the incoming fleet eliminated, remaining forces in disarray." The Bane surged forward, guns blazing. Torpedoes and plasma bolts ripped through the stunned survivors. For a moment, the galaxy seemed to burn with human firepower. In the corridors, the crew moved with practiced precision. Damage teams patched minor hull breaches, gunners reloaded weapons, and security teams scanned for any boarding attempts. Every action was timed perfectly with the ship's attack, coordinated by Argus's predictive algorithms. The Zereth tried to regroup, but chaos reigned. Their formations were broken. Command signals were lost in the debris and the shockwaves. What had seemed like an overwhelming enemy now floundered before a single human warship. Ryland watched through the viewport as the remaining Zereth ships scrambled to escape the minefield. He allowed himself a brief smile. Let them know what it feels like to be hunted. For hours, the Horizon's Bane pressed the attack, exploiting every weakness, punishing every mistake. And then finally, the fleet began to retreat in earnest. The gate remained untouched. Human colonies beyond the system were safe for now. On the bridge, the crew exhaled collectively. Tired hands unclenched, voices trembled with relief. Hale allowed himself a small grin. Ryland didn't celebrate. He simply stood, eyes on the stars, knowing the fight was far from over. The Zereth had learned something terrifying. One human ship could change the outcome of a war, and they would. Remember it. The void trembled as the Blood Ascendant emerged from hyperspace. It was unlike any Zeroth vessel the humans had ever seen. Its hull was massive, longer than cities, taller than orbital stations. Energy conduits pulsed along its spine, glowing, with a sickly white light that made even seasoned crew members on the Horizon's Bane shiver. This was the command ship, the flagship of the Dominion. Built to crush entire fleets in a single salvo. On the bridge, the crew felt the weight immediately. The tactical display blinked red with enemy markers. The Blood Ascendant's sheer size and firepower dwarfed everything they had faced so far. "Commander," Hale's voice was tight. "They brought everything. Captain, we won't survive a direct engagement." Ryland's eyes didn't leave the viewport. "If we don't survive, we strike. Full broadside to their vulnerable points. Argus, give me a plan." The AI immediately calculated thousands of possible attack vectors. Probability of survival is minimal. Highest chance of success, aggressive assault on ventral conduits while maintaining evasive maneuvers. "Then we take that chance," Ryland said. The Horizon's Bane surged forward, smaller and faster, weaving between the colossal shadow of the flagship. The Zereth responded instantly, firing beams of energy that could cleave through mountains. Every shot forced evasive maneuvers. Shields screaming under the strain, the Bane's forward cannons fired relentlessly, tracking the ventral conduits with precision. Sparks and energy flares erupted along the flagship's hull, but the ship barely slowed. Incoming drones, Argus warned. Hundreds of small attack craft poured from the flagship's hangars, aiming to overwhelm the Bane's defenses. The human crew moved with machine-like coordination. Turrets spun, point defense lasers fired in perfect arcs, and torpedoes launched to intercept the waves of drones. One by one, the attackers disintegrated, but more kept coming. The Bane rocked violently. As one of the flagship's beams hit a side shield, lights flickered, the crew gritted their teeth. Every system screamed for relief, but none came. Ryland's hands moved over the console, issuing orders faster than anyone could follow. Evasive maneuvers now, all power to forward shields. Target ventral conduits. Fire pattern Gamma 2. A massive explosion rocked the Blood Ascendant. Part of its energy conduit network collapsed, cascading electrical surges across the hull. The flagship shuddered, revealing cracks in its otherwise impervious armor. But the victory was temporary. Another beam cut across the Bane's forward hull, sending the ship spinning. Alarms blared, and the crew held on tightly as automated repair systems kicked in. "Captain, they're adapting," Hal shouted. "Their targeting is learning our patterns. Then we change patterns faster." "Then they can predict," Ryland said. "Argus, sacrifice yourself if needed. Blind their targeting." The AI's voice was calm, acknowledged. Power grids shifted. Sensors went offline in strategic patterns, giving the Bane moments of invisibility. Beams from the flagship missed. By meters, giving the human ship the opening it needed, Ryland ordered one final assault. Torpedoes and plasma volleys ripped into the weakened sections of the Blood Ascendant. The flagship screamed, systems failing, energy conduits collapsing. The colossal Zerath vessel staggered, caught in a maelstrom of its own destruction. On the Bane, crew members watched the horror and awe unfold. They were exhausted, battered, and burned, but alive, as the flagship began to explode. Fragments of its hull and debris scattered across the battlefield. The Zereth fleet hesitated, losing cohesion without their command ship. Ryland allowed himself a breath. "We've done it. For now." Argus's voice was faint in the aftermath. "The enemy fleet is retreating. Its probability of further engagement minimal." For the first time in days, the Horizon's Bane floated through silence, battered but unbeaten. The galaxy had witnessed something no one believed possible. One human warship had faced the might of an empire's flagship and survived. The legend of the Horizon's Bane was only beginning. The Horizon's Bane floated in the aftermath. Hull scorched, its shields flickering, and its crew weary beyond words. The void was quiet now, except for the faint hiss of decompression and some minor breaches. Around them, the remnants of the Zeroth fleet were scattered, twisted metal tumbling slowly through space. The flagship, the Blood Ascendant, was gone. "Captain." Ryland Voss stood at the viewport, staring at the Tyran gate. Beyond its shimmering ring, hyperspace beckoned. But he knew the choice before him was final. "We finished this," he said, voice low but firm. "Captain," Hale asked, concern lacing his tone. Ryland didn't answer immediately. His gaze followed the debris drifting from the shattered fleet. "We don't just hold the gate. We close it. Permanently. The Dominion won't get through here again. Not today. Not ever." "Argus," the AI spoke quietly. "Warning. The weapon necessary to collapse the gate is untested under full operational conditions. Estimated survival probability of the Horizon's Bane and crew is extremely low." Ryland's hand rested on the console. "Its probability be damned. We do it." The crew moved with grim determination. Torpedoes were armed, reactors pushed to their limits, and every system readied for the final act. Outside, the remnants of the Zereth watched, uncertain, unable to comprehend what a single human warship could do. The weapon fired, a concentrated singularity cannon. A prototype designed for the endgame. Sphere of raw energy formed at the ship's bow, expanding, twisting, and tearing the fabric of space around the gate. The Tyron gate itself trembled violently, the shimmering surface cracking like glass under pressure. The Zirith fleet attempted to intervene, but they were too late. The Singularity cannon unleashed its full energy. A ripple shot through the system, collapsing the gate, creating a miniature implosion that sucked in debris and energy from the race's surrounding space. The remaining enemy ships were trapped on the wrong side of the void, unable to escape. The Horizon's bane shook violently as the shockwave hit. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, and the very hull groaned under stress. "Brace for impact," Rylan ordered, gripping his station. For a moment, silence enveloped the ship. Then, slowly, systems stabilized. The Bane was battered, smoking, barely holding together, but intact. The crew exhaled as they realized they had done it. Hale looked at the captain, awe in his eyes. We actually did it. We stopped them." Rylan didn't smile. He simply nodded. "For now, the galaxy needs to know. We are never weak. Not while humanity stands." In the following days, rescue ships arrived to recover the surviving crew. They were hailed as heroes, legends who had turned the tide of war with courage, skill, and a refusal to retreat. Across human colonies, stories spread of the warship that had defied an empire, of the captain who refused to abandon a gate, and of the crew who fought as one against impossible odds. The Zirith Dominion would remember the Horizon's bane. They would remember that even a lone human warship could strike fear into the heart of an empire, and the humans would remember the costs the lives lost, the courage required, and the strength it took to hold a single gate against an unstoppable force. Galaxy had changed forever. One warship, one crew, and one unyielding captain had proven that humanity's fire could never be extinguished, even in the vast emptiness of space. The legend of the Horizon's bane would shine brighter than any star. The gate was gone. The fleet trapped. And humanity's defiance had written a story that would be told for generations. The war was far from over. But the message was clear. No army, no empire could stop humans when they chose to fight.